I'm Julieann Hartman, and welcome to Hart. And today I have with me a very special guest, but he's not a guest anymore. He is the co-host of Hart. This is Mr. Butch Hartman, my husband, who you've seen before on the show. He was on many times. This is, I think, your fourth appearance.
Fourth appearance.
Your second as a co-host.
Wow, how about that?
So
Yes.
thank you for joining me, sweetie, because
I'm excited.
you know, I feel like we're at home. I feel like we've invited you into our
You always
kitchen.
wear that coat at home.
Exactly.
You wear the sparkly coat.
When I get up in the morning,
Yeah,
I wear this.
she looks exactly like this.
And
at
also
home.
it is Christmas, and so we have a little decoration out
Yes.
here. I thought that was really nice.
Very festive.
Yes.
Yeah.
But today, sweetie, we're talking about something that is hard for a lot of people to swallow, and this is loving your enemies.
It's interesting at this time of year, especially because we all go through the motions. We all put the decorations up. We get the tree. We send out the Christmas cards. We buy the gifts, and then Christmas is over, and we go about the rest of the year. But there's that one thing she just mentioned that a lot of us forget to do or don't even think about doing, and that's loving your enemies. And the reason I'm giving a little more weight to that when I say it is because think about it. Do you really? People say, "Well, love my enemy. Why should I love my enemy?"
Right.
You don't have to do anything. We're not telling you to do anything at all, and you don't even have to listen to us if you don't want to. But loving your enemy is a biblical principle that we never listened to before either. We haven't been Christians all of our lives. We became Christians about 10 years ago. But there was one scripture in the Bible that we really stumbled over, at least I did, and that was loving your enemy. And I kept thinking, love my enemy, this guy or this girl or this person. I don't like this person. They're my enemy. Why would I love them? And after learning about it and hearing about it and hearing it ministered to me over and over and over again, it comes down to this. Loving your enemy isn't going to change your enemy. It's not going to change that person that you perceive as your enemy.
It could.
Oh, it absolutely could.
It
Forgive me.
could.
I don't mean to say it won't, but that's not the main point of it. The point of it is to change yourself. Because
Right.
all the hatred and the dislike and the anger and the rage and the resentment's going to do is eat at you. It's going to fester like a cancer inside of you.
And we've already had this on the show about how
Yeah.
unforgiveness, anger, all of those emotions
Yeah.
cause cancer.
They can cause physical problems.
Disease. Remember, because it's dis-ease in the body.
Right.
And so, yeah, you're definitely right.
So when you have anger or again something against somebody else, the only reason God put this in the Bible is to forgive your enemy, because it will relieve so much off of you. It'll take a giant weight off your shoulders. It'll take a huge. It'll quench that fire inside you, that rage, that anger, that tension that's inside of you. It'll let it go. There's several people in my life that I've had to forgive, and it wasn't easy. It really wasn't.
No,
I thought I'll never forgive this person for what I perceive they did to me. And slowly but surely, as I started to meditate on this and dwell on it and think about it and force myself to do it, because sometimes you got to force yourself. You just got to take that first step. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. I almost said single step. Single step, but it's so freeing when you can forgive an enemy, or to love somebody as you'd love yourself.
But you know what I like too is that, okay, so this is probably mainly for us girls, but you know, have you ever been to the grocery store and there are some people you don't want to see? So you're with your grocery cart and you're like,
I mean people that you know.
yeah, people that you know that you don't want to see. So you're like, God, I hope I don't see them. And then you do see one and you're like running to the other side of the market so that you don't have to run into that person. Well, that's bondage.
It is
and
bondage.
yes, believe it or not, I have done this. But it is bondage. And you're all of a sudden now you're like, oh my gosh, I don't want to see this person. And then you run into them because it always happens that you do.
And it's funny how when you say that, not just the grocery store, you start. If there's someone you don't like or don't want to see, you'll start making sure you don't go to places where they might be.
Exactly.
You'll start trying to avoid places where they are or where they could be. And that the word bondage is perfect because that limits you. You can't go anywhere. You're afraid those people are going to be there. And what possible harm is going to come to you? You're going to have a bad feeling or a bad moment or feel weird for a moment. Mm-hmm. Imagine what it would be like if you went up to that person, or if you saw that person you don't like over the holiday season. You see them somewhere. Your instinct is to avoid them. Okay, I'm going to run this way, but just take a second, don't avoid them, walk toward them, and say Merry Christmas, or say, how are you? How you doing?
Okay,
it'll probably blow their mind.
But I'm going to take it a step further. You ask them, what are you doing for Christmas?
Wow. And
that's hard.
This is okay. Now this is a higher level right here. This is a fully trained Jedi right here. This is somebody who's really gone to that. She's done that before. She's gone straight up to people that, and I know these people have wronged her majorly, and she's gone up and invited them over to our home for a meal. And I'm thinking, wow, how are we going to get through this meal? And you know what? Once the meal's over, once the time together's over, everybody feels better, and that bondage is gone. It is lifted.
And to have that feeling of freedom.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, and those are the things that we do have to deal with all the time. This is a natural thing that happens. People wrong us. People have problems with us. Even if we don't even do anything, people can have an issue with you. It's like anybody can sue you for anything, so anybody can get mad at you.
Right.
And most of the time, it's not even really what you did because they're listening to someone else who said this about you or your situation.
Nobody thinks that they are wrong. No one ever thinks they're wrong. And believe me, you don't think you're wrong, they don't think they're wrong, and that's probably never going to get resolved until someone takes the first step forward. I've had moments, I'm not sitting here, I'm not trying to pat myself on the back. I'm just saying this because I've been freed from this. I've had moments in my family with family members that I didn't talk to for years. Just cut them off, didn't talk to them, don't need them. They live in another part of the country, I live in this part of the country, don't need to talk to them. But as time went by, kids started being born and special events would happen and things would happen. Now, wouldn't it be great if I could share this moment with that person? And I can't do it. And it came time. I said, and once I got into this word here, into the Bible, love your enemies. I was like, I thought, man, I've got to take this first step. Exactly. It was hard. It was difficult. But you know what? The minute I did it, it all changed.
And think of the freedom, though, that you got because of that.
The one time I called this family member, I called, left a message on their phone. They weren't there. But I left a message. I said, hey, call me back. I love you. That's all I said. And I thought, well, they'll call me back in a week, in a month. They called me back like 20 minutes later. And it just opened up from that point on. We've been, great ever since. So at this time of the year, especially if you're going to give a gift, that's one thing. But just get rid of that bondage. Give the gift of freedom, not only to that person. To yourself.
To yourself.
Yeah, that's what I recommend.
One thing that I've recommended to people before is, we all have that person in our family, and you know what we're talking about here.
We're going to start naming them right now.
No, we're not naming anybody.
Let's list them all by name, phone numbers, emails. No,
but we all have that person in the family. If you want to call them the black sheep or call them whatever in your family.
Or you might be the black sheep.
Or you might even be. And that's a good point, too. Invite that person over. Do you know what it feels like to be the outcast now that and you're being the outcast, right? And you don't have any relatives that really, that contact you anymore. So now you've got your own circle of friends and, then they have their own families and now here comes a holiday and you've got nobody. Call that person up. Just do it. In spite of how you feel, just do it. Call that person up and say, hey, we were just wondering, would you like to come over for dinner? Now, do you know what's going to happen when you open up that door and you see that person and you go, welcome. You've got your arms open. Yeah. You've got a twinkle in your eye because you're really happy to see them. Do you know what that's going to do for them? I once asked, I was in a group and I was speaking, and I asked, does anybody have that one family member, that drives you a little,
insane.
Bananas. And the one lady raised her hand and she said, I'm the family member. And I said, and I was like, well, that's pretty bold, first of all, for her to even say that. But I said to her, I go, let me ask you a question. How would you feel if whoever it was, that kind of outcast you, were to open up their arms and say, hey, I'm so glad you're here. She said, well, it would make me feel so great. I would feel so loved. Mm-hmm. And so, see, the benefit here, if you think about it, the benefit is they feel loved. You feel better now because if they feel loved, they're going to start acting better. Right. You see how this goes? And now it's going to make your life even better because of it.
Yeah, and also, and keep this in mind as well. All you have to do is extend the invitation. All you have to do is open up yourself. If they don't respond to you, it's on them now. It's the ball's in their court. Hopefully they will respond to you.
I know, but
some people might take longer to respond.
No, I know that. But
I'm just letting them know that sometimes it's not as instant as you think.
No, I understand.
The instant part comes, your freedom comes when you put yourself out there and you forgive them and you start to love them. That's the tricky part. That's the part that opens you up.
Well, but sometimes you need to reach out to that person even more because I've had situations where they've completely cut me dry, like typing an email. No, I don't want to, there's no reason for us to rekindle our relationship. And so I keep on persisting because I know that if I can just get to them and show them love, mm-hmm. I know if I could just wrap my arms around them and give them a hug and say, hey, I'm really sorry for what happened. I know I can I can soften their heart.
And how many stories do we hear about people that don't speak for years and can't even remember why? They can't remember what the initial reason was that they stopped speaking.
Exactly. I
It's
mean,
been so long.
And you know what? And as I get older too, and I found that I teach these principles to my daughters, but I know that when you're younger, it's a little harder because you've got image, you've got all these things up against you that you want to be cool. But as I've gotten older, and I say, something, I know this much, that God's word rules and reigns in my life. It has to be. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't matter what someone thinks of me. If they think, oh, look at her, she lowered herself to get a hold of that person. I don't care about that anymore. What I'm doing now is I'm taking care of this heart. And that's the most important thing to me, is that I'm opening up this heart so that I can receive from God. If I can't receive from man, I'm definitely not going to be able to receive from God. And that to me is important.
Right, but rage...
And I think women are different than men too. I think that women...
Yeah. I just said the word rage. I mean, rage is a thing that men really feel manly owning in themselves.
Right.
Men hold on to rage like you can't believe. Men hold grudges. They are angry. They feel they got to be angry. They got to yell. They got to scream. They got to punch. They got to do all these things to make them feel better. And listen, there's a time you can go to the gym and hit the heavy bag and definitely get out some rage and some frustration. But I'll tell you, it's those times where you're home by yourself, or you're going to bed at night and you're thinking about those people that you should be talking to. Gosh, wouldn't it be nice if so and so was here? Man, wouldn't it be great if this had happened this way?
Right.
I should have called that person, but I didn't want to. And listen, it might take you a couple weeks, couple months to get around to doing it, but do it. Don't put it off any longer,
and
especially this time of year.
But as long as you plant the seed of saying, maybe should I, do something like that,
Yep.
you give God that little bit of an open door, and he's going to start opening up that doorway to your heart and really pour out that love to you so you can actually get to that. I was having a problem with somebody a couple years ago as far as how do I handle this person in our life, because I was really very negative about this person, and I was very much not liking them, I guess, for lack of a better word.
It wasn't me, was it?
But it was interesting. We went on vacation, and we took this book with us. And in this book was everything. It just didn't mention the person's name. I mean, everything I needed to do to get released from this was in this chapter we were reading. And I said, okay, Lord, I got it. It's going to, because we were doing it every day during our vacation. And sure enough, when we got home, I was like, what was I so concerned about? And what was I so angry about? And what do I care? Because just loving this person is going to make my life better anyway.
Absolutely. And this phrase isn't in the Bible, but it should be. Life's too short. You don't have time for this.
Right.
You don't have time for all this hate. You don't have time for all this rage. You need to get out there and start living your life. You need to start getting out there, loving people. Again, you don't have to love everybody in the world. Just start with that one person that you feel you need to forgive, and see where God takes you after that happens. But let's go to our foundation scripture. We got the first one we had was Luke 6:35. I already read it. Jesus says, "But love your enemies, do good, and lend even." It says, "And lend, hoping for nothing in return, and your reward will be great." I love that.
That's
look at
awesome.
that. The word reward is in there. What's a reward? It's something you get for doing something. When you lend somebody something, do you really hope for nothing in return? That's another thing. We'll get into that one later.
No, but it doesn't have to even be money.
Exactly.
Right.
When you give of your time, or when you
your
give,
heart.
When you help somebody, do you expect something in return? We'll get it. That's a whole other show.
Yeah.
Also, Matthew 22:39. Matthew was a tax collector, and nobody wanted to hang around Matthew except for Jesus. That's another show. Anyway,
yes.
Matthew 22:39 says, "You shall love your neighbor as yourself." That means treat your neighbor just like you'd want to be treated.
Right. Now, qualify neighbor.
Neighbor doesn't mean, neighbor does mean the person who lives next door to you, but it also means your fellow man, every person that you run into.
Okay.
Treat them like you want to be treated, because everybody likes to be treated well, correct? And I'm not assuming, that people want to be treated well, just like you do. So next time you're going to treat that person badly or wrongly, just look at it, how would I want to be treated? How would I treat me in this situation? Anyway, I think that's all the time we have.
From our heart to yours, this is Butch and Julieann Hartman saying, you are greatly blessed.
Highly favored.
Highly favored and deeply loved.
And Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.